Lauren Bean, and I'm the Education Director at the Science Center, and we're going to talk about summer camps. And so this is just a brief overview of each camp and what that might look like. So if you have ever wondered what we do at science camps during the summer, hopefully your questions will be answered. And I'll go through where we have camp, how many days each camp is, the cost if you're interested, and a lot more fun details about each camp. And for those of you that are here or watching on Facebook, please feel free to jump in at any time and ask questions. This is to be interactive, like camp is. So let's get started. As far as the camps that we offer day camps. So these are about 5 days with an optional overnight, and we call these our H2O camps, and that's something you're going to see a lot. H2O stands for headwaters to ocean, and that means we cover all of the ecosystems from the headwaters to the ocean, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. For overnight camps, we have a few other options. So we have our H2O, Headwaters to Ocean camps, or we call them mini DIRT camps. There are going to be a lot of acronyms. DIRT stands for Delta Restoration Team. So this is a 5-day, 4-night overnight camp for about middle school age. Levi, wink, wink. And then we have the full, not mini, but the full Delta Restoration Team for high school age kids. That's 7 nights. And then the Copper River Stewardship Program. And I'll go into the details of what all of these camps entail in a little bit. But first of all, where is camp? So camp is all over the Copper River Delta if you're in a Cordova-based camp. It's a little bit different if you're participating in the Copper River Stewardship Program. I'm looking at Helen, who's in the audience, who is a participant of the Stewardship Program. And so we went up into the upper basin, we visited Gulkana Hatchery, and we rafted the Copper River. So at that point, camp was a huge scale. This last year's Copper River Stewardship Program, we were in Kenny Lake, Glen Allen, Kennecott, and McCarthy, and we were on a sailboat in Prince William Sound. So our camps cover a large geographic region. However, we do have a solid structure at 13 Mile. That's this guy right here, and you'll see more pictures. So if you're driving out to the airport, a lot of people don't know this exists, which is kind of cool. If you're driving out to the airport, you pass the airport, past Cabin Lake Road. It's not Cabin Lake Road. And you keep going right where the pavement ends. Immediately you turn left. So it's as the pavement is ending, you turn left, and you'll find our beautiful campsite located back in there. But this is what is hidden back in that secret spot. So this is what I call the main cabin, or the cook cabin. So it is where we cook meals, where we have group meetings, where we do arts and crafts, or get together for stories, or just kind of the steps make a nice meeting point. And all out in front of this cabin is a nice big open gravel area for games and meetings, and parking vans, and gear cleaning and organizing as well. We also have pit toilets, which is a nice feature of our campground. So you're not in the woods all the time doing your business. We do have pit toilets. We also have a bunkhouse cabin, so you can kind of see it if you walk down this pathway. It's right back there in the woods. You can see the window right there. And what it looks like inside, we have 4 bunk beds, so 8 bunks, and lots of cots to sleep about 10 to 12 people in here pretty comfortably. It's a really nice space. And when we have more people at camp, for say the 6th grade overnight, which is not a summer program, but we get pretty full with about 20 to 25 students, we have a weather port. And so that's a kind of semi-permanent tent structure that we can put about 10 people in. A little cramped, but we can do it. So that's what the camp look like. As far as camp staff, summer camp staff goes, this one, that's me, will be there all the time for all of these camps. And this was for a restoration project. I'm not supposed to be very ominous looking. We usually have a summer camp intern. So last year it was Lori, who joined us from Florida, and the year before that, Alex, who came from North Carolina. And they're here just for the summer. They're college graduates with interests in environmental science or environmental education or marine biology. And they come up to learn about our fabulous ecosystems and to be awesome, super enthusiastic camp staff for the summer. We also have local partners. This is Kate Morse from the Copper River Watershed Project, who is a big part of the Copper River Stewardship Program. We work with a lot of U.S. Forest Service Cordova Ranger District personnel. This is Nathan showing us some very interesting lichens, sorry Nathan, on Haystack Trail. And then a number of partners in the back here. We have two more Forest Service partners in the front, Robin Mayo from Wrangell Institute for Science and Environment, and another educator, lead educator, who's actually a high school English teacher from Haynes, who came on the stewardship program 2 summers ago to be our humanities instructor. So summer staff can be very broad depending on the program you're on, or if you're doing a day camp or an overnight camp for middle schoolers, you're getting the Prince William Sound Science Center staff in that top row. Okay, so any questions so far? All right, we'll start with our youngest campers. This is our H2O Headwaters to Ocean Day Camp. So day camp means you come to the Science Center at 9 in the morning and you are with us until 3 p.m. So it's a 6-hour day, but you go home at night, mostly. And we do everything from adventuring all throughout the Delta. We visit all of the ecosystems, which we'll go through. Like I was saying, it's about 4.5 days, and we'll get into why it's a half day. And then also an optional overnight on that last night of camp, that Thursday night, where we spend the night at our campground in our nice bunkhouse. So we can take up to 10 campers at these camps, and it's $225 with scholarships available, and that is a common theme you'll see on all of our camp prices. We have a Carol Treadwell scholarship fund for all of our camps. So you fill out an application, and it's 4 questions. So why is camp going to be important to you? What do you think you'll learn? What do you hope you'll bring to camp? And what do you think you'll take away from camp? So it's very simple. I don't want anyone to be turned away from camp because there is a dollar sign associated with it. If you want to come to camp, we'll get you there. So this is what a typical week at H2O Day Camp would look like. This is from our second day camp this year. So if you notice, each day has a theme. So we have Rainforest Day, Glacier Day, Ocean Day, Wetlands Day, and an It's All Connected Day. And you can see a little bit about what we do each day, but we'll walk through it as well. So this week of camp, we started with Rainforest Day. It can be totally different every summer or every week, and a lot of it depends on when a good day to have Ocean Day is, based on tides. We want to go tide pooling. So this week, our first day was Rainforest Day. So we met, we got to know each other, played a bunch of games. We made our science journals, which we use throughout the week to make observations, do sketches of what we're seeing in the ecosystems around us, record questions that we have. Sometimes we just like to write down a list of snacks that we ate that day and what we liked best. Anything can go in your science journal. We hiked, this is Haystack Trail, we hiked this year, and learned all about the plants that we find in the ecosystem, the trees, nursery trees, and we played our favorite game right here, camouflage, which is where one person is the predator and they just stay in one spot, and then everybody else has to go hide as prey, but the prey have to be able to see the predator at all times. So it makes hiding a bit tricky. You have to be able to keep your eyes on the predator. Here's our predator right here. But keep yourself hidden enough that you're not spotted by the predator. Okay, the next day this week was Glacier Day. So we visited Sheridan Glacier, but before we did that, we made what we call flubber, which is very similar to slime. I know that's very in right now. But flubber has very particular properties in the way that it moves, which is similar to glaciers. So we talk all about how glaciers are formed and how they moved. We make some observations in our science journals, which is what's going on back here, before we head out. And we spend the whole day on the glacier exploring, looking at the landscape, learning about Sheridan Glacier, where it's been, where it's going, and how it's shaped the landscape. And of course, we do our favorite camp activity, glacial facials, where depending on what kind of camper you are, you can be head to toe covered in mud or just a light brushing of mud, but it's certainly an activity that takes place at camp. All right, the next day is Ocean Day. Like I said, this day usually dictates how the week turns out because we want to have a super low tide to go tide pooling and explore all the different critters we can find while we're tide pooling. Here I think we're looking at crabs, learning how to tell if a crab is male or female. We go to the dock and pull up all sorts of tires and buoys that are in the water because they have amazing ecosystems that are living on them. This year, we always have an ocean-themed craft. Most days we have some sort of craft. This year with this camp, we made reusable bags and talked a lot about how our impact, human impact, can affect the ocean. So we used a lot of my old t-shirts and we made reusable bags. These are also available at Nichols because the Watershed Project made a bunch of these during Salmon Jam, and they're in that big kind of wooden crate at the end of one of the registers. If you forgot your bag, you can take a t-shirt bag home. Wetlands Day might be my favorite day because it's usually Thursday. And what we get to do is wear chest waders for the whole day. And a lot of times that's a brand new experience for most of the campers. And so we learn about how to put on chest waders properly and then how to walk in the water without getting wet. And then remember that waders have a limit. So you can see some of us are getting a little close to topping our waders. But it's a really neat sensation if you've never had waders on to get in the water and feel what that's like. So we go usually to Alleganic. We catch a lot of salmon fry, and this is the day that we talk about salmon and salmon life cycles, the importance of wetlands in our ecosystem, and all the different animals that we can find in the wetland ecosystem throughout the Copper River Delta. So it's super important super important ecosystem that we can find throughout the Delta. And it's also sometimes my favorite day because it turns into overnight without going home. So we spend the whole day, we drive out to the end of the road, usually weather dependent, and we do a scavenger hunt while we're on our way out there. We play out on the sand near the Copper River if we can, and we roast hot dogs and s'mores when we're back at the campground, and we eat fruits and vegetables as well. And we tell stories and we play games and we just have the whole day to have fun, which is really nice. Here we're doing some watercoloring out at Alleganic. So it just kind of opens up the day for a lot more activities when you don't have to come back to town at 3 o'clock. Here we are around the campfire just eating s'mores and having a good time. So the overnight just allows for, like I said, a lot more freedom in what we're doing. And we all spend the night in the bunkhouse. We tell stories and play games in our sleeping bags, and we wake up the next day. We have a nice pancake breakfast, pack up our stuff, talk about what we've learned throughout the week, make some final thought notes in our journals, and head home at noon that day, because we're all very sleepy and ready to go home. Okay, so bumping up to the overnight camp, our Headwaters to Ocean overnight camp. So this is almost as if you've graduated from day camp, you're ready to spend 4 nights out on the Delta, and just have all those evenings for that extra time. So it's kind of a mixture between H2O day camp in what I call Dirt Camp or Delta Restoration Team, which is why this has two names of H2O Overnight and Mini Dirt Camp. So our big partner for this camp is the U.S. Forest Service, Cordova Ranger District. This is for students in grades 6 to 8-ish, all suggested. 4 nights, which turns out to be 4.5 days. Again, we can take up to 10 campers. This is $500, scholarships available, and all sorts of fun. These change every summer. So I have no idea what a typical mini dirt camp will look like. I couldn't tell you what this year's will look like because it all has to do with the projects that we can help the Forest Service with. So we go out and do some field research or learn about the research going on in the forest or on the Delta with the Forest Service. So here you can see this is last year's mini dirt camps. Like I said, it could be totally different year to year, week to week. This top picture, we're learning all about dusky Canada goose nest islands. And this was August. It wasn't an ideal time to go out and visit the nest islands, but what we did, we had, this is Melissa, she set up a goose kind of dusky detective scavenger hunt for us, where we had to learn how to identify where geese would be and what to look for their nests, and then when we got there, look at their eggs and be able to determine what happened to those eggs. Did they hatch? Were they eaten by other animals? Were they knocked out of the nest, or did they just not hatch at all? Was it not a successful nest? So that was really fun. We also, out at Alleganic, worked with Haley and Maura to do Alodia monitoring. So Alodia is an invasive plant found here in Cordova. And so you can see, here's Grace throwing out a rake. This is how they rake for vegetation in the pond. So you throw it out, you bring it back in, and then you see what comes up, and you do an abundance of the different species of pond vegetation, which there are a lot, let me tell you, that we needed to know how to identify, which is what Haley's teaching us over here. Before we went out and threw the rake, we got kind of the 101 of which plants we might see in the pond. And then here you can see Braden in a poke boat, which is a little kayak, kayaking around in the pond using what's called a view tube to see if he could look down in the water and see any Alodia in the pond. So we really got to participate in their surveys throughout the week of camp, which was really nice. This is a stewardship project from 2 years ago. The first year we ran mini dirt camp. The picture on the left is a little dark, but you can see this is out at Holbrook Pond. And so this is a recreational area. This is what it looked like when we got there. Just absolutely trashed. We spent all of the morning and half of the afternoon there picking up trash and brushing. So you can't see, you can see the trash that we removed, but it was all throughout the road on the way leading up to this recreational site as well. So we picked up bags and bags of trash, a whole 5-gallon bucket of nails out of the fire ring. We didn't do it by hand. And then we brushed the area, which cut back the vegetation and made this a beautiful recreation site. I haven't been back to visit it, but hopefully it still looks like the picture on the right. If not, we'll be back and clean it up another summer. These are some other projects we worked on. This is out at 18 Mile Recreation Site. So when we got there, you couldn't see any sky. This was all vegetation. So we cleared out that campsite, made it just a little more hospitable, opened up the views a little bit around the recreation area. Out at Haystack, this is 2 summers ago. So we replaced these bottom handrails at the end viewing platform. They were rotted out, so we took them off. We went and we helped the Forest Service pick out the right size trees for the railings, and you can see Mia here. She's, what's the proper term? Peeling. She's peeling off the bark to make them these nice smooth handrails out at Haystack. So if you're out there anytime soon and you look at the bottom ones, you'll notice that they're a little bit newer than the top ones. So that was a really fun day. We are also visited by other guest scientists. This is Haley Hoover, who works at the Science Center, is also a salmon fellow. So she came out with her buddy Charlie, who's a salmon fellow, and they taught us all about the different species of salmon, and we talked a lot about different user groups that use salmon for different reasons. So people using salmon for subsistence versus commercial style, and what the pros and cons and how we can all come together to use that shared resource. And then we filleted these salmon and had a very lovely salmon dinner at camp, which was nice. And it sounds, you're going to say like, hey Lauren, we're not coming to camp to work. We're coming to camp to have fun. And let me tell you, these projects are super fun, but we also make time to just goof off and enjoy camp by visiting the glacier, having some fun at Haystack while we weren't working, playing the Oreo game while we're eating lunch. This year we had a whole day of kind of rainy weather with no restoration projects to do, and they decided they wanted to build a hot tub out at Surprise Pond at 27 Mile. So we went and we spent all day digging a hot tub in the sand, filling it with a tarp, and then bucket by bucket of water, bringing it up and making a hot tub. So we definitely play around and have a good old time. This was 2 years ago in the caves by McKinley. So we had cave parties with music. We hiked the McKinley Pipeline Trail. Here's some games that we're playing. Oh, here's the hot tub pre-water. Jumping off the bridge into the sand at 27 Mile, and canoeing. So we're doing lots of fun stuff, but also some really great work for the forest while learning about all of those ecosystems we talked about during H2O Day Camp. Whew. Any questions?
So you said that you don't know yet what the projects are going to be. So how far in advance do you know?
Depends on the Forest Service a lot, just what projects they, like the Haystack one, I knew that maybe 3 weeks in advance, but the Elodia one, I knew maybe a couple days before camp started. I knew we were going to do something with them, but I didn't know where we were going to go, because we're kind of at their field schedule, and because I really want it to be genuine and authentic.
Yeah.
What are you doing this day? And we will meet you, and we'll come learn about what you're doing, or we'll help no matter what. So,
nice.
Yeah, Levi.
So do you guys have your own gear? Like if you guys were to go out and do wading again, do you have waders?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we provide all of the gear that you would need. The only thing that we ask you to bring for overnight camp is a sleeping bag, a sleeping pad, and your pillow, and your toothbrush, hopefully. Yeah, but we have the waders, and a lot of these you saw PPE, like hard hats and glasses, and we get those from the Forest Service. Yeah, so you wouldn't need any gear other than your sleeping stuff and your clothes, and rain gear, because it's Cordova. Unfortunately, it rains. Great question. Okay, so far, most of these camps have been targeted at Cordova specific, or people who are here for the summer, or they're visiting family members here, and maybe they're going to be here a long time. Delta Restoration Team, or DIRT Camp, this camp targets people from all over the country. So if you look at our very first DIRT Camp cohort, only one of these campers is from Cordova and Alaska. The rest of them, we have Maine, Oregon, 3 from Virginia, 1 from Washington, and 1 from California. So they came from all over the country to participate in this camp. This is for high school-ish age campers. It's 8 days, 7 nights. So again, we're based out at our 13-mile campground. And this camp is all about stewardship, restoration, and leadership. So remember I said that mini dirt camp is kind of a mix between the two. This is the super restoration focused camp, where we're here to do those restoration projects, talk about stewardship and our role in stewardship and caring for the environment, and hopefully inspiring these guys, these campers, to go on and be our next future land leaders and informed citizens. And And a lot of them are. They're in college now and they're studying environmental science, at least 3 of them. So that's really nice. So this camp happened in 2016. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to fill it since then, though it's offered every summer. But here you can see that we're out in a pond. So we went down to the Alleganic boat ramp. We loaded up in canoes. We canoed down Alleganic, went across, and then slogged out through the ponds, through the wetlands to get to these dusky Canada goose nest islands. So I know some of you are very familiar with the Nest Island program because you've participated in it. But for those who aren't, in 1964, the earthquake happened and a lot of the land in this area was uplifted, which means it dried out, and bushes and trees were able to come in that weren't previously there. So what that meant for the dusky Canada geese is that their nests were then more accessible by terrestrial predators via the land that used to be a lot more wet, and then by avian predators on perches like those trees that weren't there previously. So the dusky Canada goose population dropped off drastically. And in the 80s, the Forest Service and a number of other partners implemented what you can kind of see back there, these nest islands. So they're floating islands out in the middle of the pond, and there are over 300 of them throughout the delta. The best place to view them is at Alleganic. If you're ever driving the Alleganic Road and you look out into, if you're driving towards the boat launch, on your right there are a couple that you can see pretty clearly. You're like, that doesn't look quite natural. It's very round. That is a nest island. But other than that, you could not really tell the difference unless you're a trained nest island hunter. So we spent a whole day restoring these nest islands, like I said, across the Alleganic in the middle of the wetland. You can see this is what it looked like when we got to it. What do you think the issue is with that if you're a goose trying to live on that nest island, Levi?
Too exposed.
Too exposed, exactly. But what about this one? Would you live there?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So we went out and we dug up a bunch of vegetation and you transplant it onto the nest island and revegetate those nest islands to hopefully bring those geese back, give them a little more coverage to be successful. We also went back to Snag Lake, which also in Cordova is called Stump Pond. It's kind of nearish the dump area. And so we spent a day back there doing 2 different projects. We canoed across Snag Lake and hiked up this stream to set juvenile fish traps. And what we were looking for is the presence of juvenile salmonids in the stream. No one had ever monitored this stream before to know if there were juvenile salmon in it, even though locally you would have heard that of course there were juvenile salmon in that stream. So we set the traps in the morning. We came back to the lake. We cut down some native trees thinning out the forest a little bit, and then made what's called brush bundles, where you weave these trees and branches together, and then you tie weights to either end. They're kind of triangle shaped, so 3 of those weights. And you can see here deploying of the brush bundles, very delicately balanced on the canoes, paddled them out to the middle of the lake, and you sink them. And what this does, this increases overwintering habitat for juvenile salmon in the lake by giving them protection from larger predators. And then we canoed back across the lake, hiked back to our fish trap, and we ended up catching juvenile salmonids in our fish traps, which then means that this area was nominated to the Anadromous Waters Catalog, affording it certain protections. So you can't develop in this land, this area, now that it's nominated and listed in the Anadromous Waters Catalog. So that was a very fun day of fish biology. And then we went out, this is another day, we worked with the Forest Service Trails crew. Dan was there. And we got rid of this bridge on the Pipeline Lake, almost at the junction between McKinley and Pipeline, just up from there. And we did not build this whole bridge. What we did, we moved this giant log tree what's it called?
So,
Using these super cool log tongs from, we maybe moved at 100 yards? Yeah. So that was a really neat day in the life of what it takes to build and maintain these trails throughout the Delta. And this is the finished product on the right, and this is the old product. So we helped move that all the way over, which was really fun. And then that night, I think they were a little mad at me, but we went back, we hiked that trail again, and we spent the night out at McKinley Lake Cabin. And just had the night in the cabin to explore the area and have a little bit of fun. And then we hiked, or maybe that was the night before, and then we worked on the trail the next day. Of course, we always have time for fun. We visited the glacier, we went fishing on Ibeck, and again had a nice, lovely salmon dinner last night, thanks to Ken Hodges for meeting us and teaching us how to fish properly. And then this is our last night in town where we had a wonderful Baja Taco dinner and said our goodbyes. Like I said, most of those campers were from all over the country. Okay. Last but not least, the Copper River Stewardship Program. I am just right now representing one partner of the stewardship program. As you can see, it takes many, many partners to put on this program. Our local partners are the Science Center and the Copper River Watershed Project, as well as the Forest Service. And then we have our upriver partners, so we make up the downriver contingent. And then our upriver partners are our Copper Basin partners, Wrangell Institute for Science and the Environment, Bureau of Land Management, and the Park Service, Wrangell-St. Elias National Park Service. So it takes a lot of groups to put this camp on because it is very logistically heavy. We're bringing 5 campers from Cordova because we are the only community downriver of the Copper River. And then 5 campers from the upper basin, so the campers can be from all over. And this is very specific to this region. You must live or have a very strong connection to the Copper River watershed to participate in the Copper River Stewardship Program. And again, we're targeting high schoolers here. It's 10 to 11 days, depending mostly on the ferry schedule, because we do a lot of traveling. We can take about 10 stewards. Helen's year we had 13, because we took a massive crew on the Copper River. And this is $300, but again, scholarships are available for this. And what we do, we spend part of our time down in Cordova learning about this ecosystem, and we spend part of our time in the upper part of the watershed learning about their ecosystem because they're incredibly different. And the minds are a little bit blown when you compare Cordova's rainforest ecosystem to our super dry boreal forest. And it's a really neat way to get these stewards, these participants, to come together and think about the different places in which they live. And every year has a different theme. We do something completely different every year. Last year's theme was movement. Helen's theme was salmon. So we did a lot of salmon studying with Helen. This is Helen's year where we actually rafted the Copper River from, where did we put in? Chitna, thank you. Lost my brain there a second. Chitna all the way down to Cordova, 6 days on the river. This is 2 years ago. You can see we're out. You can see Cordova on a beautiful sunny day, so maybe it doesn't look like Cordova. But here we are again. We're working with the Forest Service on that Nest Island program. So I'll just end, because I've been talking a while, with a nice video that Elena Esquera put together from this year's Copper River Stewardship Program. The stewardship program is offered for credit, so we do a lot of reflection, a lot of studying on whatever the theme was for that year. We meet with local experts, we talk about the theme, we talk about our roles in the ecosystem. For example, Helen's year was salmon, so we talked a lot about that shared resource where we have a commercial fishery down here, and then our stewards from upriver, they get their fish from fish wheels. So they're a subsistence style lifestyle up there, and how we can work together and protect that shared resource. Again, this is this past summer, 2018, this is Elena Esquera's final project that she completed for credit in this course. And the theme is movement from this year. That's ferrying. Did a lot of driving. Did a lot of moving ourselves. program in particular at all? Any Facebook questions, Arissa?
No. Though Shane Shepard said, thanks for sharing your passion for nature with the world, Lauren.
Thanks, Shane. All right, well, thanks for coming, and encourage anyone you know, please, to get involved with camps at any age. It's a super great time. We learn a lot. We clearly have a lot of fun, which is the most important part. But yeah, super great way to spend your summer.